Hi guys, it's Steffi from the Novelty Corner and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another Books Beside My Bed video. For those of you who are new here, I film one of these every week where I wrap up the last 7 days worth of reading. And for those who are very familiar with the series, welcome back. This is my reading week from the 6th until the 12th of September. I read a total of 5 books this week. 2 picture books, 2 novels and 1 novella. I read a total of 1,053 pages and my yearly reading total is up to 296 books. Let's jump straight into the books that I read this week. I'm going to begin with the 2 picture books I read because they're absolutely beautiful. And normally I don't include picture books in my wrap-ups that I don't receive for reviews, so things that I purchased for myself. I don't tend to include them, but I wanted to include these 2 this week because they are absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous books with some great representation in them, or that deal with ideas of how we celebrate everyone. So I did just want to mention them really briefly. The first one is Two Mates by Melanie Pruitt and illustrated by Maggie Pruitt. So this is a mother-daughter duo. This was published in 2012 by Magabala Books and I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. It's a gorgeous story. I should say both of the picture books I'm going to talk about I heard for the first time in professional development and then bought them for myself. Two Mates is based on the true story of Melanie's son Jack and his best friend Raph. And we go through the whole story. It's beautifully told, beautiful language. It's about their friendship and all the things that they do together and the fun that they have and every kind of adventure. And then we get to the very end of the book and we discover that Raph is actually in a wheelchair. And that hasn't stopped him from doing all of the same things that the boys love, from swimming, quad biking, going to festivals and hunting and all of those sorts of things. It's just one aspect of his life and it is this beautiful, beautiful friendship between these 2 boys. And at the back of the book you get some photos of the 2 boys and a little bit of the history of the book and also a little bit of information about spina bifida, which is what Raph has. And it is just absolutely stunning. And it is written by an Indigenous author. So, I mean, I can't recommend this one enough. And then a 2020 release, Little Light by Kelly Canby. Again, this one I was recommended through a professional development session and I loved it when I read it. It is the story of a little town that needs some enlightening. So this town is entirely enclosed within a wall. No one goes past the wall, no one knows what's on the other side of the wall, no one wants to know what's on the other side of the wall. Until one day bricks in this wall start disappearing. And the mayor gets very frustrated and convinces the people that this is a very bad thing. And as these holes in the wall begin appearing, they become windows into the different groups of people who live on each side of the wall. So you have people who look a little bit different and who speak different words and have different customs or different music. And the mayor, very unhappy, keeps trying to convince the people, and then we discover that perhaps not everyone is okay as ignoring all of these different things because they become intrigued, like what's that music and what's that food? It smells really delicious. And eventually they help bring the walls down and it is just gorgeous. Okay, on to the novels that I read. The first one was The Love Study by Chris Ripper, which is a 2020 release from Carina Press. I gave this one 4 out of 5 stars. It was a review copy from NetGalley. It is a queer romance story featuring Declan and Sydney. Sydney is non-binary and this is also Own Voices, as Chris Ripper is non-binary as well. The story is told from Declan's perspective. Declan is famously known amongst his friendship group as having left his fiance at the altar, like literally got to the door and then bolted. And so he is a self-proclaimed commitment phobe. He's still really good friends with his fiance and they've sort of come to this understanding that, you know, the relationship wouldn't have survived even had they got married. But it doesn't stop the friendship group from, you know, teasing the hell out of Declan all the time. Commitment phobe Declan has not had a serious relationship since then, has not held down a full-time job. He's an office temp and he's been office temping at the same office for the last couple of years because the office manager really likes him and wants to give him a full-time position, but he won't commit to anything. So she just keeps bouncing him around to different places in the hope that he'll find something that he wants to commit to. And at a gathering of his group of friends, Declan meets Sydney, who has recently moved to town, is a YouTuber and does that full-time for his job and runs an advice channel. Declan sort of talks about how he wants to try and get back into the dating game and to be serious about it. And so Sydney proposes that they run a little study called the Love Study, where they help Declan find dates and potential matches, and Declan will report back through a series of interviews about how the dates went. And so the story sort of goes from there and Declan goes on these dates with both men and women, and some he has more chemistry with than others. Some are more successful than others, but the person he truly has chemistry with is Sydney. And so the two decide to attempt a relationship, and things go right and then go horribly wrong. And Declan is the kind of character who sort of self-sabotages himself and his relationships. I enjoyed the story. I didn't quite think that Declan and Sydney had the chemistry that they were said to have had in the actual book. The thing that I loved about this book was Declan's friendship group, who are absolutely incredible. They're incredibly loyal to each other, but they also know how to push each other's buttons, and they know how to tell each other exactly what's going on and what's what. I really truly appreciated that Declan and his ex-fiance are friends, and more than that, they're almost best friends, and they can still talk to each other. And I thought that was a really nice way to talk about adult relationships, recognizing that just because something goes wrong doesn't necessarily mean it has to dictate your relationship forever. Then I read Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo. This is my Works Book Club book for September. This was published in 2019 or 2018? 2019 by Penguin. I gave it 2.5 out of 5 stars. I know it's an award winner. I can see why. But it is an award-winning literature fiction type book and not really my thing. Essentially, this is one story, but we get 12 short stories of different characters who are present at an overarching event. And that event is the production of a play put on by the first character that we read about, Alma. Everyone's come to this opening night. And so we have her friends, her family, people who are related to all of these different characters. And then we get 12 short stories about their histories and how they ended up at this particular event. It is an incredibly diverse cast. You have Black characters, you have characters who represent different aspects of the LGBTQIA+ spectrum. There is a lot of female-female relationships. There are transgender characters. There are characters who are young, middle-aged, and those who are elders, and it's all about how they relate. I enjoyed some of the stories, but it was probably like 3 or 4 out of the 12 stories that I did really enjoy reading as a reading experience. There are trigger warnings in here for domestic abuse, drug use, rape, so it's not necessarily an easy book to read. It covers a lot of race issues as well, so that was really quite confronting, and those weren't the reasons that I didn't enjoy the book. I actually found the writing style really difficult because it is the writing style that has no punctuation. Well, no full stops at the end of sentences, so it was really hard to sort of find the flow and hear the story being told, which is the way that I sort of read, I think. But like I said, some of the stories were a lot easier to get into than others, and I'm glad that I read it because I think there was a lot of really great points made in the story. I didn't necessarily connect with the writing style. And let's be real, I am a very big genre reader, so reading something that is straight lit fic is not necessarily always my wheelhouse. But I'm glad that I read it, and I'm looking forward to talking about it with people on staff because I think there's going to be some interesting discussion about it. The novella that I read this week was an advanced copy of Katie Roberts' Sacrifice, which is the first book in her Bloodline Vampires series, which I think is coming out potentially in October, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Katie Robert is incredibly prolific with her writing, and I think there was something that she said on social media recently that I didn't actually see personally, but I know a lot of people have talked about it. And that is that due to the pandemic, she has really just let herself write what she's interested in writing. And this was one of those passion projects. And it is a paranormal, polyamorous vampire story that is erotic romance. And honestly, it was just a lot of fun because she was inspired by something that she'd watched or read, I think. And then she just went down this rabbit hole because that's what she wanted to write. And I think that is an incredibly powerful thing to say in the current day and age, because if you're stuck at home and you've got everyone around you and you're trying to push yourself through writing things that you don't want to write and ignoring things that you're passionate about, I think that's possibly more detrimental, but I'm not an author, so I won't say that that's a blanket rule. But I'm kind of glad that she did it because it was really hot and really sexy. She does have a whole lot of trigger warnings and she puts them on the blurb, so you know exactly what you're getting. So the trigger warnings were dubious consent, blood play, breeding, an abusive parent, and a cliffhanger ending. I love that a cliffhanger ending is a trigger warning, especially in the romance genre. But this is the story of Mina, who is half vampire, half human, and she has absolutely no political advantage for her father, who is sort of one of the ruling vampire people of a clan. And so he essentially trades her off to a bloodline vampire called Malachi. And bloodline vampires are descendants from the original vampires. They were actually born vampires, they're not made. And the deal is that Mina will serve as Malachi's blood bank, and she'll also have a child with Malachi so that it will be a bloodline vampire, and that child will then be taken back by Mina's father and used for political gain, essentially. So it's very, very problematic. We quickly discover that Malachi is perhaps not quite the monster that Mina has been led to believe. Yes, he does drink from her. Yes, he has lack of self-control. Sometimes, well, at the beginning he has some lack of self-control, but then he's actually quite careful around her, and he starts training her to fight and making sure she eats properly, and starts to sort of disabuse her of some of the ideas that her father had put into her head. This is a polyamorous story, so you have Mina and Malachi, but there are also two other vampires who pop up. It is very, very steamy, so it's definitely not one to pick up if that is at all not your thing. I don't know, apparently I can read most things at the moment, who knows. But anyway, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was an interesting start to a series. I know vampires are coming back, and you know, this was a quick and easy read, vampire read, and written by an author that I trust, and I like her writing style. So yeah, that was pretty much the book. And I'm also about 70 pages into Time of Contempt, which is the second novel in the Witcher saga. I will hopefully finish that this weekend. So those are the books that I have read this week. In the comments below, let me know what you have been reading. If you've read any of the books that I have, feel free to let me know. Otherwise, feel free to share anything else that has been on your reading pile, because I always like hearing about new books. I hope wherever you are staying safe and healthy and sane. I think that's my new little catchphrase. I hope that you are staying sane, and I will talk to you very soon. Have a really great day, everyone.